cultures and centuries, it has symbolized power, purity, and permanence. But behind the glitter lies a long-standing illusion, the belief that gold is the most valuable metal on Earth. Today, we begin a journey through history, science, and perception to uncover the truth. That gold's worth is as much psychological as it is physical. From the earliest days of civilization, humans have been drawn to what shines. Gold was one of the first metals we ever worked with. Unlike iron, it didn't need smelting. You could find it in riverbeds, pure, malleable, glowing softly in the sun. It didn't rust, didn't tarnish, and when hammered, it stretched like clay without breaking. That made it feel divine. Archaeologists have found gold beads in Bulgaria's Varna necropolis dating back over 6,000 years, some of the earliest known examples of metal artistry. In ancient Egypt, gold wasn't just a metal, it was a theology. The Egyptians called it Nub from Nubia, the region rich with gold deposits along the Nile. They said it was the flesh of the gods, the material essence of the sun deity Ra. Gold adorned the tombs of pharaohs, lined the walls of temples, and gilded the statues of gods. To the Egyptians, gold's untarnishing nature represented eternity. Yet, here's an irony. In early Egyptian history, silver was actually rarer than gold. The Nile Valley had plenty of gold mines, but almost no silver. Some records suggest silver once traded at twice the value of gold. So even in antiquity, value was relative, determined by scarcity and perception, not just beauty. The same story unfolded across other civilizations. In Mesopotamia, gold was used for decoration and diplomacy. Kings wore it as a mark of divinity. In the Indus Valley, artisans hammered gold into intricate jewelry. In South America, long before the Spanish arrived, the Inca and Moquia peoples crafted stunning golden masks and ornaments. For them, gold symbolized life itself, the radiant energy of the sun. It was never just currency. It was connection to the divine. In ancient Greece, gold carried moral and mystical weight. Philosophers called it the tears of the gods. The Greek poet Pindar wrote that gold was the child of Zeus. But even then, its value wasn't purely material. Gold became the metaphor for excellence, the best of everything. It was a standard not only of wealth, but of worth. By the time of the Roman Empire, gold had become the lifeblood of imperial economy. The aureus, a small gold coin, symbolized Roman might across continents. Emperors hoarded gold in their treasuries. Soldiers were paid with it, and conquered peoples were forced to deliver it as tribute. The empire's success was measured in gold, but again, it wasn't universal. The Roman world ran mostly on silver coins, the denarius for daily trade. Gold was reserved for grand gestures, for diplomacy and decadence. It wasn't the only metal that mattered, it was the one that dazzled. Meanwhile, across the world in China, a different story unfolded. There, gold was respected, but not central. The Chinese economy ran largely on bronze and later silver. Gold served more symbolic roles as gifts, ornaments, or imperial tributes. By the Ming Dynasty, silver became China's main monetary metal, partly due to vast imports from Spanish colonies in the Americas. Yet gold still carried deep philosophical meaning. In Taoism, it was linked to immortality. Alchemists pursued gold elixirs in their search for eternal life. The very Chinese word for gold, jin, also means metal, as if to say gold was the essence of all metals, the perfect form. So while its economic importance varied, its symbolic importance was constant. Across thousands of years and every major civilization, Gold wasn't valued because it was useful, but because it was believed to be special. And that belief built an empire of meaning. Gold became synonymous with purity, stability, and immortality. When the Greeks spoke of the Golden Age, they meant a lost utopia. When religious texts described heaven, they paved its streets with gold. Even in death, gold followed the powerful wrapping mummies, covering sarcophagi, crowning empire. But this raises a critical question. How did one element among over 100 known today capture such universal devotion? The answer lies in a perfect storm of chemistry, rarity, and psychology. Chemically, gold is unique. It doesn't corrode in air or water. It doesn't tarnish like silver. You can bury it for centuries and dig it up still gleaming. That permanence made it seem eternal, immune to the decay that consumes everything else. Humans, mortal and fragile, were mesmerized by a metal that seemed to defy time itself. It was also rare, not impossibly rare, but just rare enough to feel exclusive. It could be found, but not easily. Too much rarity, and a metal is forgotten like iridium or too much abundance, and it becomes mundane like copper or iron. Gold occupied that sweet spot, scarce enough to be precious, but abundant enough to be owned, displayed, and traded. And unlike harder metals, it could be shaped by hand. Early civilizations could hammer it into coins or jewelry without advanced tools. So gold became not only a treasure, but a canvas, a way for societies to express power, artistry, and belief. In short, gold's supremacy was never just about price. It was about psychology. It embodied permanence in a world of decay, radiance in a world of shadows. It became the physical representation of human longing for immortality, beauty, and control over nature. But as societies advanced, something interesting happened. Our technologies evolved, our needs diversified, and the metal that once symbolized all value began to share the stage. The age of discovery and the centuries that followed turned gold from a sacred symbol into a global commodity. When Spanish conquistadors crossed the Atlantic, they were obsessed with tales of golden cities El Dorado. They plundered the Aztecs and Incas, melting temples into bullion, sending ships laden with gold across the ocean. Those galleons reshaped Europe's economy and inflated its prices. But here's the irony: in the very rivers where conquistadors panned for gold, they also found another metal, pale, dense, and unyielding. They called it platna, little silver. They thought it was an impurity, a nuisance that polluted their gold. They had no idea. It was rarer, harder to melt, and in time, more valuable. They threw it away. That metal was platinum, the very one that would one day challenge gold's crown. The early modern world was blind to many metals' potential. Humans knew gold, silver, and copper. Iron and bronze were common, but the periodic table still lay centuries in the future. The conquistadors' ignorance of platinum wasn't stupidity, it was a reflection of how thoroughly gold dominated human thinking. Gold had become the standard for beauty and wealth. Anything that didn't look like it, feel like it, or shine like it wasn't considered treasure. As we moved into the 17th and 18th centuries, science began to change that. Chemists like Lavoisier, Wollaston, and Tenon started isolating new elements, many of them far rarer and stranger than gold. Platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium. These names entered the scientific lexicon. Each had properties that made them unique: high melting points, catalytic activity, resistance to corrosion, even stronger than gold's. But here's the key: none of them had gold's mythology. They didn't carry the emotional weight or the historic prestige. You could argue that these new metals were more useful, even more precious, yet they weren't believed to be. It would take the Industrial Revolution to change that, to introduce a new kind of value, utility. Because while gold remained a darling of kings and bankers, the world was entering an age where a metal's worth would depend not on its glow, but on what it could do. And so, for the first time in history, gold's supremacy would be tested not by war, not by scarcity, but by progress itself. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the Industrial Revolution turned value into something measurable, mechanical, and pragmatic. Metals once seen as curiosities suddenly became indispensable. Platinum, once tossed aside by conquistadors, became vital for chemical reactions, electrical contacts, and catalytic converters. By the 1970s, platinum was more expensive than gold, not because it looked prettier, but because it kept the modern world running. It purified petroleum, enabled new medicines, and made cleaner car engines possible. Then came palladium, a cousin of platinum, quietly surpassing gold's price in the late 2010s. And finally, rhodium, the rarest of them all, spiked to nearly $30,000 an ounce in 2021. That's more than 10 times the price of gold. This tells us something profound. Gold may be the most beloved metal, but it's no longer the most valuable, at least not in economic terms. Yet, despite these shifts, gold's reputation hasn't changed. People still call it the ultimate store of wealth. Central banks still hoard it. Investors still rush to buy it when economies wobble. Why? Because gold has real power, outshined, in its chemistry, it has in our collective faith. Think of it this way: if every computer on Earth vanished tomorrow, the demand for palladium would collapse. But if every currency collapsed, gold would still hold value. That's not science, that's psychology. Gold represents trust, something no other metal has managed to earn on such a global scale. It's liquid, recognizable, and symbolic. The average person doesn't know what rhodium looks like, but they all know gold. Even governments still believe in it. Central banks collectively hold over 35,000 tons of gold reserves, more than any other commodity reserve on Earth. They don't stockpile rhodium. They don't hedge in platinum bars. They trust gold because everyone else does too. In economics, that's called a network effect. The more people accept something as valuable, the more valuable it becomes. But the irony is that gold's power has outlived its necessity. We no longer back currencies with gold. We don't mint everyday coins from it. Its industrial use is limited compared to other metals, yet we still see it as eternal wealth. That's because gold's value was never purely practical. It's emotional, historical, and cultural, a mirror of human desire for stability in a chaotic world. Throughout history, gold's price has reflected not only supply and demand, but fear and faith. During wars, its price soars. When inflation rises, people flee to gold. When currencies lose credibility, gold becomes a refuge. Its chart is a story of every global panic, from the oil crisis of the 1970s to the financial crash of 2008 to the pandemic years of the 2020s. Gold doesn't produce dividends, but it produces comfort. It's less an investment, more a form of psychological insurance. And yet, even as gold holds its throne in the human imagination, other metals quietly shape our daily lives in ways gold never could. Every car that meets modern emission standards relies on platinum, palladium, or rhodium. Every smartphone or laptop contains microscopic traces of gold, not as a luxury, but as necessity. These metals make up the invisible skeleton of modern civilization. If you think about it, the true most valuable metals today aren't the ones that sit in vaults. They're the ones making your world function. Without palladium, air pollution would skyrocket. Without platinum, industrial chemistry would stall. Without rare earth elements, electronics would die. The world may worship gold, but it runs on other metals. Let's look closer at how their values move. Unlike gold, whose price follows investor sentiment, the platinum group metals rise and fall with industrial trends. A spike in car manufacturing can send prices soaring. A slowdown can crash them. When electric vehicles began replacing gasoline engines, palladium's dominance faced new uncertainty because electric cars don't need catalytic converters. Gold, on the other hand, remains detached from utility. It's driven by perception, not production. That's what makes it both timeless and irrational. So what does all this mean? If gold isn't the most valuable metal in raw numbers, why does it remain the most important one? Because value isn't only about function, it's about meaning. Gold symbolizes the idea of permanence in a transient world. It represents faith that something physical, tangible, and ancient can outlast currencies, empires, and even civilizations. Platinum and rhodium might power industries, but gold powers imagination. That's why, even in modern marketing, gold still means the best. We say gold standard, gold medal, golden age. Platinum may be rarer, but gold remains the universal language of achievement. This deep cultural coding goes beyond economics. It touches on psychology and storytelling. Ancient humans saw in gold what they couldn't find in themselves. Immortality. It doesn't rust, fade, or die. That made it the perfect metaphor for the divine. And metaphors, once established, are hard to replace even with facts. So yes, in 2025, rhodium might cost 10 times more per ounce. But no one writes love songs about rhodium. No one builds temples to platinum. Gold holds a kind of mythic inertia. Still, myths evolve. As our civilization changes, so does our relationship with metals. The transition to green energy, electric vehicles, and digital finance is redefining what precious means. Lithium, cobalt, and nickel, once obscure, are now strategic resources fought over in the same way ancient empires fought for gold. In the 21st century, value is shifting from beauty to functionality, from the material to the sustainable. The new gold might not glitter, it might power a battery, fuel a spacecraft, or store data in quantum bits. Yet, through it all, gold remains steady, gleaming, symbolic. It's like a relic of humanity's first idea of permanence, still relevant in an age that measures value in electrons and algorithms. What's remarkable is that gold continues to bridge worlds between the old and the new, the physical and the digital. Even in cryptocurrency culture, digital tokens are called digital gold. That phrase isn't accidental. It borrows the same idea of scarcity and trust that gold once defined. Bitcoin, in a sense, is gold's conceptual descendant, another attempt to create incorruptible value in a mutable world. So even as we move away from gold physically, we still use it metaphorically. We've digitized the myth, but kept the meaning. So, after thousands of years, after conquests, empires, and revolutions, where does that leave us? It leaves us with a deeper understanding of what value really is. It's not fixed in atoms or purity. It's a living agreement between people and time. coalesce palladium, and its lustrate is in the collective story that humans built around it. A story so strong that even when other metals outshine it, gold still reigns. The same story that led pharaohs to line their tombs with it, conquistadors to cross oceans for it, and investors to hedge their futures on it. A story that, at its core, is about our need to believe in something that doesn't decay. Maybe that's why gold endures. It's not just a metal, it's a mirror. It reflects our dreams, our fears, and our eternal chase for something lasting. And maybe that's what makes gold truly precious. Not its scarcity, but its symbolism. Not its conductivity, but its constancy. In a world where value shifts every second, gold remains the reminder that sometimes belief itself is the most powerful form of wealth. So, next time you hear someone say, gold is the most valuable metal, remember this. The price may fluctuate, the science may disagree, but the story of gold has outlasted them all. And that, perhaps, is the truest kind of value there is.